All right, thank you again for joining. Just some housekeeping. As a reminder, we have a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout, please add them to that Q&A and I will answer them live at the end of the presentation. The presentation will be relatively quick, so there'll be enough time for any questions. So this is a quick agenda. First, welcome, we're doing that right now. We'll give a department overview, an overview of the Food Equity Initiative, and then a Good Food Fund program overview and an application overview of what you should look forward to when you apply. And then, as I mentioned, time for a Q&A. So as a BACP overview, BACP is the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection for the City of Chicago. BACP ensures a fair and vibrant marketplace for business, workers, and consumers in the City of Chicago. We license businesses and public vehicles, regulate business activity, protect consumer fraud, enforce Chicago's labor laws, and partner with business service organizations and provide education and resources. So we do a lot of things. You can see all of our bureaus here. The one highlighted in red is the Small Business Advocacy, where the Economic Recovery Team, is based, and that is where we come in. And this program is based out of the Economic Recovery Team. We are managing all the federal funds for the department. So as I said, that we're on the Small Business Advocacy Division. We have three main areas that we're working on for economic recovery. That is small business relief, nonprofit relief, and food equity. And you can find more information on our website for other initiatives. For the Food Equity Initiative, as everybody knows, the COVID pandemic has exacerbated the food inequity issues experienced in the City of Chicago. So BACP is invested in programs focused on increasing food equity in communities with a history of disinvestment by encouraging the development of urban agriculture sites by local growers. We have an ongoing program for urban growers, providing funds to entrepreneurs who are part of the food ecosystem, where this is where this program comes in, and funding local food incubators, which is another program that we just launched, and the pre-submittal conference for that is actually right after this one. So you just making sure you're in the correct one. This is for the Good Food Fund, and the food incubator one will be right after at 11. This program was designed along the Food Equity Council, a public partnership dedicated to transforming Chicago's food ecosystem into one that is just and equitable. So the program itself, overview, the Good Food Fund will provide support to food entrepreneurs in communities with inequitable access to food. The Good Food Fund was designed after extensive community engagement, and we seek to expand, enhance, and restore the food industry using an equity and community-based approach. The Good Food Fund, as it says, will be a fund focused on emerging and operating small businesses in communities with the greatest food insecurity, and this is throughout all of the food ecosystem. This is very important. So this Good Food Fund, the idea is to fund food entrepreneurs, whether it's a restaurant or grocery or manufacturing, anywhere in the ecosystem, to make sure the ecosystem as a whole is stronger. For the program overview, we are looking to select just one awardee for this program. The awardee, which is known as a delegate agency, will design and manage the Good Food Fund. This is a $7 million program overall, but $5 million of those $7 million will go into the fund itself. So it's going to be used for grants to the businesses. And then the remaining $2 million will go to the delegate agency to fund the operations of the fund, but also, most importantly, to provide wraparound coaching to the businesses applying to receive funding from the fund and other food entrepreneurs who might not need money but do need technical assistance. So we are hoping that the delegate agency that manages these funds also has a robust coaching specifically towards food attached to the program. And like I said, the city is looking for an innovative partner to fill the gap in the current small business financing ecosystem by providing sector-specific funding support for food entrepreneurs. And the delegate agency will also be encouraged to grow the fund with support from the city. The selected agency will be responsible for mainly administering the grant. So as I said, this fund will be $5 million, will be to seed the fund. The grants will range from $10,000 to $100,000. And unlike emergency grants from before, where it was a bit of like first come, first serve and trying to get money out the door, these grants will be, the application will be a little more rigorous, and the delegate agency will be in charge of determining that what the business is asking for makes sense and how it is sustainable to keep that business going, and just as we mentioned, providing a lot of additional support to the business. The delegate agency must have the fiscal capacity to administer the program, but by demonstrating experience and ability to utilize grants with proper controls in compliance with federal and local regulations with an expedited time frame. This is really important. We need applicants who have the experience in transferring funds from the city to a business, and particularly federal funds. Since all of this is federally funded, there is a lot of regulation around how those funds can be transferred. So we want to make sure that you have that experience, so make sure to write that in your application if you do. The delegate agency will also design the grant application and review process. The grant review and funding should occur quarterly, and the award amount should be proportionate to the business use of funds. This is a very important detail. The $5 million will be allowed for expedited reimbursement. We obviously don't expect the delegate agency to have $5 million to give out and then get reimbursed, as most city grants are, which are reimbursable. However, the $2 million for administration and for technical assistance will be reimbursed in the same manner that all city programs are. And if you have questions about that process, please add them to the chat. But for the $5 million, we expect to transfer money basically from the city to the delegate agency quarterly. So the agency will have applications review and have a list of businesses to fund, and we will make those transfers quarterly to make it more structured. That is how we have worked it out with our finance department. Another important part of this overview is the assembling of an advisory committee. The delegate agency will be required to design and manage a committee made up of community leaders and food entrepreneurs to ensure the fund stays aligned to its mission and values, and to create community transparency and accountability. The advisory committee will partner specifically on designing the eligibility criteria, since they will be subject matter experts and know what food entrepreneurs need. The idea is that we will have a very grassroots local advisory committee that will provide input on that eligibility criteria. They won't be deciding who gets the funds. That will be through the application. Very important note on that advisory committee: one, you don't have to have it designed by the time you submit an application, but just be aware that this is part of the process once you are selected, if you are selected. The advisory committees will not be able to apply for grants or help others apply for grants, and cannot be part of a business that is applying for a grant. So when creating that committee, just make sure that there's nobody in it that wants to eventually get money from the fund, because they will not be eligible as they are creating the fund. Fund growth, as we mentioned, we highly encourage the delegate agency to further the fund's missions and values and find additional capital for it. We will assist as possible. This is a really good and important investment in Chicago's food entrepreneurs, and if it can be sustained for longer than the time that the federal funds allow for, that would be really great and impactful. So if you have a strategy to expand the fund afterwards, we encourage you to include that in your description in your application. And then the subgrantees' use of funds. The businesses can use the funds for this list of items: so permanent working capital, inventory, equipment purchase, construction and property upgrades, facility expansion, business process, real estate acquisition, workforce development, community education. So basically, we have tried to keep it as open as possible within the legal requirements of what the funds can be used for, but we are pretty open on what the funds are used for, and that they are used for what the business actually needs them for. Referral and connections. The delegate agency will be required to connect entrepreneurs to other capital sources. including but not limited to other city grants, like the NOF fund or SBIF, Small Business Improvement Fund, other federal financing, connecting to other food-related technical assistance, and connect to other city-funded organizations like our neighborhood business development centers to provide additional assistance. We want the fund manager to also expand the food entrepreneurs network, or where they can get assistance on all the other existing tools that they could be using. This will be part, obviously, of that technical assistance wraparound, technical assistance that we're looking for. And speaking of that technical assistance, we're looking for highly specialized food industry-specific coaching. The chosen delegate agency will be required to offer free, highly specialized technical assistance and coaching for the recipients of the Chicago Good Food Fund grants. Costs may include additional full-time staff to provide industry-specific coaching. So we are allocating a lot of funds for this because we do think it's very important. So make sure in that budget you put additional staff if you need them, or anything you need to provide this highly specialized food industry-specific coaching. And some examples of what that coaching could look like could be licensing and permitting specifically for food businesses, professional certification, food production and manufacturing, food operation, marketing for catering businesses, menu pricing, how to become eligible to accept SNAP. All of these are eligible coaching topics. Report requirement. This is just an important list of what we will require at a minimum. As I said, this is a very large program, so it will be subject to all the federal requirements, and it will be audited by the city, the federal government, so just be very aware of that. The requested data will include at a minimum the number of businesses funded, the use of funds per the business, the technical assistance workshops, coaching sessions conducted, hours of technical assistance, summaries of project outcomes, photos and testimonials, so stories, and basic demographic information. So we always encourage you to remember your reporting and data staff. So once you're creating that budget, make sure you have enough capacity to be able to meet all federal requirements for funding and transferring these funds, and all the staff that's needed for that, and also all the staff required to have really good data reporting. If you add that to that will be a question in the RFP submission. So make sure to include that, and we are looking to see that reflected in the budget too. The eligibility. So anybody can apply, any organization can apply, nonprofit organizations or for-profit businesses can apply. We have a standard requirement for 3 tax returns. Those are usually 1990s, as we generally work with nonprofits. But if you're a for-profit business or another type of business, you can submit the equivalent of that. So you can submit your federal tax returns for your business instead of a 990. It's the same thing. Collectives applying with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor are also welcome. Joint proposal and coalition submissions are eligible. You need to have one person who's actually submitting the application, but we are fine with and encourage coalition submissions. And just make sure the applicant's missions, values, and core strategy explicitly align with the food equity values that are listed on the RFP. Just as a disclaimer, applicants with existing contracts with the city that are not in good standing will not be eligible, and we will require all the insurance coverage and economic disclosure, EDS, economic disclosure statement, and all of that. Program expense eligibility. So as I mentioned before, these are the program staffing is obviously an eligible expense for this program. When you're filling this budget, please remember that $5 million will be just grants. So it will be just transferring the funds from us to the business. That shouldn't really be in your budget, except as a one line that says $5 million for grants. The rest of the $2 million is what this expense eligibility list is for. So you will have program staffing, program materials, program marketing and outreach, and equipment purchases that must be under $5,000. You cannot buy anything more than $5,000, which obviously doesn't make that much sense for this program. But this is eligible program expenses. One thing I always recommend for the budget, do not under fund yourself, we are looking for the best proposal, not for the cheapest proposal. We are how the city generally reviews applications, because we have the $7 million saved for this program. It's based on what you will be using the money for, not that your application is a penny less than another application. So make sure you have all the stuff you need, all the materials you need, all the program marketing and outreach. We see applicants not have enough marketing, and then they can't provide the marketing they would want to on the other end. So make sure that the budget includes everything that you actually need, and as long as it is a reasonable expense, it will make your proposal stronger. Speaking of the budget, you must complete a program budget. The template is on iSupplier, outlining all the detailed expenses in its entirety for the proposal. The applicants will be asked to provide full job descriptions for everybody who will be part of the program. If you are hiring new staff, like if your plan is, if you get this contract, you would hire more coaching staff, for example, please still submit a description of what that position would look like, even if it's not currently on your part of your staff. Staff are now permitting to serve volunteers. They must be paid for their time and labor. We like paying people for their work, so make sure that's reflected. The City of Chicago also encourages applicants to allocate a portion of their budget staff to support data tracking and evaluation. As I mentioned, this is usually very important and a lot of times overlooked. The city reserves the right to negotiate during contracting, so we will, once an applicant is selected, we will talk about the specific budget and work plan. And the maximum amount for allocated indirect costs is 10% of that $2 million. So when you are calculating the indirect, a reminder that it's not 10% of $2 million, so it's 10% of the direct costs. So it's a little bit less than the 10% of the 2 million. If you have any questions about that, please ask them in the chat. And that is not that important for the proposal, but having your indirect costs correctly in your budget obviously shows that you know what you're doing. So make sure it is not 10% of the 7, it is 10% of the 2 administrative costs. General payment process. This is a lot of text in here. You can, this will all be posted online, but this is just reminder that of the reimbursement methods for the city. So regular grants get reimbursed. You do the work, pay for it, and then submit an invoice for work you've already done, and then you get paid for the city. That will still be the process for the $2 million. However, as I mentioned, we will send you the funds for pre-approved grantees quarterly. So once you review applications and have a list, this is the list for the first quarter. This is how much money we are giving out in grants. You send that to us, we review and approve, and then transfer that funds so you can immediately transfer it to the businesses. That would happen quarterly, and it will not be based on reimbursement. It will be funded upfront, as we don't expect you to just have $5 million in the bank. Scoring criteria, this is what you can expect to see once you go into iSupplier and how many points each category is. Throughout this presentation, I've touched on most of this, but I'll go through them specifically. Organizational experience and values, that's 35 points. The mission of the organization should be aligned with the objectives of the program. Showcase proven track records of supporting food entrepreneurs in disproportionately impacted communities. Also proven track records of being able to transfer funds from the city to businesses. No outstanding tax issues. We required, as I mentioned before, 3 tax filings and certificate of good standing if you're a new organization. Although we will review that as needed, because we are looking for an experienced organization since this is such a large program. One reminder of the 3 documents, please submit your 3 tax returns. You get graded not on actually submitting them. A lot of times they are not included, and then you lose about 10 points just automatically, because this is a yes or no thing. So if you submit your tax returns, you automatically get the points for having submitted the required documents. And just make sure your organization has written bylaws and policies and procedures, no pending lawsuits, and can monitor program expenditures. For the program design and implementation strategy, this is the highest scoring one, obviously, because it's the design of the program itself. Make sure you clearly define the technical assistance and grant activities and goals of the program. Make sure you clearly describe how the program aligns with the good food values, which are listed on the RFP. And then detailed approach to the community engagement and outreach that you will be doing as part of being the delegate agency in charge of this fund. And as I said, we will request that you have a reasonable plan to support tracking client information and reporting on program outputs. For capacity and budget justification, here is where you will submit a budget of how much you will spend per category. You will include the overall program cost. As I said, it's $2 million for the administration and technical assistance, $5 million in grants. And make sure the proposed budget supports the proposed scope of the program and that it is proportional to what you are doing. And you will also be requested to submit a conflict of interest form, which is also an iSupplier. And then overall responsiveness, this is just 10 points if your application is completed. So you submitted all of your documents. So this, again, you lose points if you don't submit all your documents, so make sure you do. But also if a question is not answered, if questions don't have what the question is being asked by the question, this is where that is reflected for the reviewers. Review committee will review all the applications. The RFP due date for the Good Food Fund is September 25th at 11:59 a.m. before noon. This I say in every pre-submittal conference, and still we get late submissions. iSupplier is not the most user-friendly. This is where you submit your application. And if you have any issues that are not system-wide and you do not submit by this date, we legally cannot accept your application. So I recommend submit by September 23rd. Don't wait until September 25th, because if you have any issue and the issue is not system-wide, we cannot accept your application. And it's not the most user-friendly system, so you might have issues submitting that you need solved. So please make sure to submit on time. And this is just a disclaimer that all proposals will receive by the deadline will undergo technical review, but otherwise they will not. And any proposal that is incomplete also will not be reviewed. The initial contract term, this is the contract details, will be 12 months, approximately from October 2023 to November 2024. How to apply, please go to the eProcurement iSupplier system to complete your application before September 25th at noon, again, not midnight. And only one response, an application may be submitted per supplier user ID. So if you want to submit 2 applications for some reason, you will need to create 2 IDs. We obviously don't recommend that you do that. Just submit one very good application. And this is the Q&A. I will read the Q&A that are the questions that are on the chat. So please send them through the Q&A. Will nonprofits working in the food access space be eligible as sub-grantees, or does the fund support for-profit businesses only? So this particular fund is specifically for for-profit businesses, but on a case-by-case basis, nonprofits are not excluded from applying from the fund once it's live, as they are part of the food ecosystem. Is a program for fund managers or food entrepreneurs? So this RFP, we are looking for the delegate agency that will be the fund manager. Once that is selected, then the program itself will be for food entrepreneurs. But right now, what we're looking for in this RFP is for the organization that will manage the Good Food Fund. What is a required timeframe of implementation? How quickly does the $5 million in grants need to be distributed? So the $5 million in grants, you have 1 year for it to be distributed. We don't want it to be just a quick rush to get the money out. We want there to be a equitable application process and assistance to businesses that are applying to get those funds. That's why we include the wraparound services. So there will be a year, there will be 4 funding cycles, basically every quarter. We will select and, well, we know the delegate agency managing the fund will select and fund businesses. Can organizations apply for both the Good Food Fund RFP and the Early Stage Food Incubator RFP? Yes. You will need to submit 2 completely separate applications, but yeah, there is no reason why you would not be eligible for both. Is there a webinar for businesses to learn about this grant? So there will be a webinar probably from the delegate agency selected once the program is live and businesses can apply. Yeah, that is something that as part of the marketing and outreach will definitely happen. All right, any other questions, please submit them via the chat. If not, like I said, this is being recorded, so if you have any questions, you can come back to it. We will send a link to the recording to everybody who signed up, even if you're not here. And as I mentioned, if somebody mentioned the Early Stage Food Incubator, the webinar for that starts at 11 a.m. You will see me talk about similar things there. But if there are no more questions, oh, I have one. Are food entrepreneurs capped to 100,000 grants? Also, are you looking for financial professionals to take care of this, or people in the food industry actively doing innovations? So we are looking for, so yes, the maximum grant award size will be $100,000 per business. Are we looking for financial professionals? Anybody can apply. We are looking for both organizations that have experience transferring funds or working with federal programs or government programs at least. And we are also looking for food industry individuals. And that is also why we're asking the delegate agency to have a advisory committee of food and community experts. When will the chosen delegate agency be announced? So the review, it will be probably mid-October by the time the delegate agency will be announced, or early October. Do you consider newly formed businesses? If so, what type of documentation are you needed? Tax returns. Yeah, so we generally ask for 3 tax returns to be part of the RFP. If somebody can write again about this question. So do we consider newly formed businesses? I'm not sure if you're asking as the participant of the fund eventually or as an RFP applicant now. So as an RFP applicant now, if you don't have, you can submit the certificate of good standing if you're a new agency. However, please know that we are looking for experienced agencies as this involves transferring $5 million. Can the budget include stipends for the members of the grant review committee? No, they need to volunteer their time to be in the review committee. Is this Zoom link the same for the Early Stage Food Incubator conference that starts next? No, there is a separate link and you should sign up for that. The next question says RFP, so I'm guessing it's regarding the previous question about newly formed businesses. So yeah, you should submit your 3 latest tax returns. If you are a new organization, submit your certificate of good standing. I would be very detailed on your experience since, again, we're looking for experienced organizations. If the organization changed names and now it's a new organization with a certificate of good standing, just make sure that you elaborate on your application on why you are eligible. Where can I find the next link, please? Can you post it in here? I can try. Give me 1 second.
I just put it in the chat. That's the link.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was just, okay, great. So the link for the early stage food incubator conference is on the chat. Any other questions? Oh, it says the chat is disabled. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah, it was sent to the host and panelists. I'm sending it to everybody. Now you should be able to see the link on the chat. Are there any other questions? Great. So feel free to visit our website. Also, you can email BACP Economic Recovery at cityofchicago.org. If you have any questions, that is BACP Economic Recovery at cityofchicago.org. And we'll be happy to answer any additional questions you have. Thank you.